Hopefully I'm clear and you guys can see. Getting ready to talk about hyperglycemia, otherwise known as high blood sugar. You do not have to be a diabetic or a pre-diabetic to experience this. Sometimes high blood sugar is going to happen, or hyperglycemia is going to happen for everybody, depending on maybe what you've eaten. So here are some things that I've written down for you. When might this happen? Carb-loaded meals, which happens to be quite the American diet. Stress. Cortisol is actually preparing your body for fight or flight, and that means it's going to need some added energy. And the best, fastest source of energy is glucose. So it's going to raise that level for you so that you're ready to do that. If you're stressed all the time, chronically stressed, that's definitely going to affect your blood sugar. Illness. You might find that your blood sugar is elevated if you're sick. Maybe you have a cold or the flu, but again, it's your body's way of trying to protect you. Certain medications also seem to raise blood sugar. One of them particularly might be steroids, that has been shown. And then I've starred insulin resistance. Again, we might think that we don't have a blood sugar problem or that we don't have pre-diabetes or diabetes, but we can still be insulin resistant. And that's actually a very probable thing that's going on for a lot of Americans because we are overloaded with the sugar. And then the sugar is going to raise our insulin and our cells become resistant to it. So those are the things that might lead to it being jacked up. So why is it that I'm talking about the high blood sugar? Well, before I started Plexus, a little over 5 years ago, what brought me to Plexus was I was given the diagnosis of your blood sugars are going up and it's in your family, so we probably think you're going to end up as a type 2 diabetic. So I was considered pre-diabetic, or just in other words, I was insulin resistant at the time. No shock to me because of my diet, the way that I ate. For those that don't know, sometime I'll have to do my whole testimony, but the fact is I started my day on Reese's Puff cereal. I ended my day with Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and I ate pretty much junk food to fill in those hours in between. And so of course it led me to that. So what I want to do is I want to kind of break down, first of all, the dangers of having that high blood sugar. And it is not just for those diabetics or the pre-diabetics, it's for everyone. Because I want you to understand, what are the dangers of having this chronic or consistently getting high blood sugar during the day? And then we're going to talk about which products I chose to bring mine down to help with healthy glucose levels. So let's look at what chronic high glucose can do. One, it's going to cause cellular damage, which also leads to nerve damage, right? If the cells are being damaged, the nerves are built up of cells, it's also going to be damaged. There's plaque buildup inside your vessels. There's decreased stomach acid, or a slower rate of moving food out of the stomach. And there's lots of notes. But there were research was actually done on healthy individuals, and they were given liquid, like kind of a liquid meal that would raise their blood sugar. And then they were tested, and what they noticed is that the stomach acid levels decreased, or the production of it decreased. So why did I put that on here, and why would I be talking about that? Well, if your stomach acid is decreased, it's not breaking the food down well enough, and it just kind of sits there. Or if it's not moving out of your stomach fast enough, and that's another part of this nerve damage, it's going to sit in there. And as it's just fermenting, it's going to build pressure. It's kind of like, the pressure building up in a bottle, and you take the cap off, or you don't take the cap off, and it finally explodes. This starts to build pressure and pushes up on the lower esophageal sphincter, the LES, and you're going to start feeling heartburn, acid reflux. So it's not that you don't make enough stomach acid, it's probably that, so if you're taking like an antacid, you probably need to switch from that to something that's going to increase your stomach acid. Totally different video or information, but apple cider vinegar, there's also a tablet that you can take to help reinforce that. But even better, You got to cut down on the amount of sugar that you take in because that's causing this problem. So let's talk about why it might move slower out of your body or out of your stomach. If there's nerve damage, you have a vagus nerve that actually is instructing your stomach. It's helping it to contract and to move the food out quickly. Well, vagus nerve, if the vagus nerve is damaged by so much glucose, high glucose, it's going to slow down. It's not going to trigger the responses fast enough. And again, the food is going to travel much slower. Okay, as I'm stuck right there, here's a big issue with this. If you are not digesting your food properly, or it's not being done fast enough, or if the acid is not strong enough to break it down, you're going to be missing out on B12. B12 is a very important nutrient that we get pretty much from meat and animal proteins, meat, eggs, dairy, cheese. It's not coming from plants. So if you're a vegetarian, it's all good. Make sure you're getting a B12 supplement because you're probably lacking in that. We also know that there are other things that kind of block the ability to process that B12 or to get your body to make it. So we have to get it from what we're digesting. Well, if you're not digesting well, you're not getting the B12, and B12 and the B vitamins are crucial in cellular health and development. So again, this is pretty huge because it's going to tie right back into your nerves, and if the nerves are not doing well, it's all connected. Finally, I want to put in here that it's a decreased release of nitric acid. Nitric oxide. And I even put a box around it. So why is this important? Nitric oxide is your body's way of expanding blood vessels. And that's going to be really important when it comes to whether you're exercising and you need more blood flow to the muscles, blood flow so that you're getting oxygen to your system and to your, all of the different cells. Well, if your nitric oxide is inhibited by this blood sugar in there, your blood vessels are not dilating, they're not expanding. And so it's inhibiting this. And we want to make sure that we have nice, flexible, expanding vessels to take care of if there is, if the white blood cells need to be rushed somewhere, if you have damage, if you have just been working out and you need that rush of blood, if there's maybe an injury to a part of the body, or if it's, whatever it is that just would say, hey, we need an increase of blood flow here. If you don't have this, it's going to get there slower. Okay, so very important things that I wanted to make sure I covered. So here I have a picture of a healthy vessel, normal blood flow. It's just passing through, and what's passing through that? White blood cells and the red blood cells and lipids, as in high, the HDL cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, all of these different things, particles, proteins, nutrients, all flushing through here, and that's a normal blood flow, and we want that. Meanwhile, we have a good level of nitric oxide, and these vessels can be expanding as needed, and so everything is able to move, and it's a perfect working body, right? So let's talk about what happens if we've got constant high blood sugar. Blood sugar is damaging. High blood sugar is damaging. It actually damages the cells of the inside of that. Of course, the dogs are barking. It damages the inside of those blood vessels. So what happens when you have damage? Let's think about our skin. You've bumped yourself and it made a cut or a wound. So what happens to that wound? It starts to build up a scab, and the scab forms, and usually that scab is kind of hard, isn't it? It's not the same smooth, soft texture of the skin. It's a little bit harder. Same thing's happening on the inside. Damaged cells are here. So what happens when we have damage here? Our blood starts to, our body and our blood start to do measures. They take measures to heal this. So the first thing that they do is they start sending white blood cells to come here and to start preparing to repair that area. The white blood cells are there. We also are going to have the LDL, which is we consider the bad cholesterol, is also flushing in there. So now the white blood cells are kind of wrapping around these other things, and it builds up into, and I can go through all of these different things, but it builds up into this thing called plaque. And plaque is hard, like a scab, but on the inside. It's made up of things like cholesterol, fat, other substances that are created as white blood cells try to fix that damage. So the plaque gets hard. Here's kind of an odd thing. As the plaque is there are other cells here that are trying to get through, and they create layers on top of the plaque. And it becomes hardened, just like a scab. Okay, well, we have this narrowing of the blood flow. We have less nitric oxide because our blood sugar levels are higher, and it's actually showing less nitric oxide is possible, to be produced at the same time. So this is not able to expand. The blood flow is now having to squeeze through. It's squeezing through, and what's inside the blood? We've got white blood cells, we've got nutrients, we've got cholesterol, we've got lipids, we've got all these different things, and it actually starts to flake away this. If you were to take that scab and brush it off, it comes off, and it doesn't just disintegrate. It brushes off, and we can knock it off our skin. This is not going to come out. We block off, if we flake off that piece of plaque, it now goes in and blocks that artery. Okay, a lot of information. Why blood sugar is so important. Blood sugar does not just flow nicely through the cells, and through the arteries. It's rough. It hardens the cells. It hardens the walls because they are now becoming covered in plaque. So this is a very serious thing. We're talking about high blood sugar, and it's not just diabetics. And you might not even think that there's an issue until there's a stroke or a heart attack. But that's like the major thing. What happens when those little arteries start to get blocked off? Let's think about diabetics that get this thing called neuropathy, where their feet start to tingle and the nerves start to die, and they always have to check their feet to go, did I injure myself, and why is it that it takes so long to heal? It takes a long time to heal because we've now cut off the widening of those vessels. We've also been adding plaque in all of them. Some of them we've even cut off, and we're damaging things like nerves, so we really can't feel it. And our white blood cells can't rush and do what they're supposed to do. That's a lot that's happening because we decided we want to continue eating all of the processed foods that are very high in the added sugars, and we're eating those refined processed sugars as well. So we need to really start figuring out, how do we balance or bring down our blood sugar into a more healthy level and get our bodies insulin sensitive and not resistant to this. Okay, a lot of information there. Just think about this with nerve damage. We're talking about, it's going to be feet and fingers, things that are, the extremities that have very small vessels where the blood is going through. We're talking about the vessels behind the eyes. Anything that is going to have plaque built up is going to have narrowing and less blood flow. Let's think about in the brain. Why do we get brain fog? Well, maybe there's some slowing down of the blood flow. We get tired. Brain fog, tired, can't remember things, starts leading into even more severe brain and cognitive issues. So let's move to what is the good news. And there is good news. When I started this, I was dealing with fatigue. I couldn't remember things. The brain fog was for real. I had inflammation, probably because I wasn't getting enough nutrients into my system. I was kind of moody. I dealt with all kinds of issues, but it was really important that I found out I could fix this. I'm not going to say heal. And remember, I am not a medical professional. I took a health coaching class. I've been researching and reading and doing all of my own stuff so that I can share this with you. So what do I take? And I know this is not everything that I take, but this is where I started. I started with Slim and found out that some of the main ingredients in Slim, and we can post the information sheet for that, but they really help your body become more insulin sensitive. So you eat something that has the sugar in it, the insulin comes in and the cell is sensitive to it. That's what I want, as opposed to just going, nope, I'm not going to use the insulin and that's resistant. So it helps us become more insulin sensitive. It also helps with, because it is sensitive, it's using the sugars properly, which means I'm not having the ups and downs. When you hit those downs, you're hangry, you're tired, and you are just looking for something, whether it's caffeine or an energy drink that has sugar in it, or the candy. We go to the vending machines. So Slim helped with leveling it, which made me less hungry between meals and more able to make good decisions because I wasn't craving sugar for the energy. Next, Active. Active is really new for us, and I wanted to put Active in here because one of the ingredients in it specifically supports the production of nitric oxide. So it's really important that I'm bringing my blood sugar levels down, and I'm supporting this process of creating the nitric oxide. What a great combo that is. Omega X. Why is Omega X important? Most of our bodies, we should have a nice balance of omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-3 is going to be found mostly in fish and fish oil, those kinds of things. Omega-6 is the inflammatory omega. We find it in processed foods, and a lot of it. So most of us are overloaded with omega-6 and not enough omega-3, and we need the balance of both. If I want inflammation, omega-6 is my go-to. It turns on inflammation so that it can quickly take care of whatever's needing to be repaired, and as soon as it's repaired, omega-3 comes and turns the switch off. If I don't have enough omega-3 to turn the switch off, omega-6 stays high, inflammation stays high, and I'm going to end up having these issues. So Omega-X, definitely my go-to. It's great for brain health and just vascular anti-inflammatory stuff. So I love that. And then finally, Nerve. I put Nerve on here because Nerve, for people who don't have issues with methylating B vitamins, that's going to be really important. But I put Nerve on here because Nerve has thiamine in it. And thiamine is a vitamin, it's a B1, and B1 is very important for nerve health, nerve support. So again, when I'm looking at these things are going to help me with bringing the balance so that insulin sensitive is what I want. I've got some healthy fats going into my system. The Active is going to increase my nitric oxide, and then Nerve is going to help with repairing those nerves and giving myself enough of that vitamin B1 that I can get from there. So lots of information. You might have to watch it again. And you feel free to comment if you have any questions, and I can see if I can answer them then. Again, if your goal is to bring your blood sugars into a healthy level, this is what I'm going to recommend, and this is what might be happening in your body if you're not in healthy levels. Have a great day.